Always when we're not filming.
Bro, I am doused in fuel. Not even kidding you. So just take precaution and be ready for a gasoline shower. Don't smoke cigarettes.
Alright, what's going on everybody? We're back for another Mustang video, and today we are installing the Walbro fuel pump. Now this is a 255 liters per hour fuel pump, and Matt down in Delaware tuned the car for this specific fuel pump. So I picked this up from him. Just want to say thanks again for that, because apparently they're kind of hard to find at the moment. But yeah, we're going to be doing that, and then as well as the Motorcraft fuel filter, because I don't know the last time the fuel filter was changed. Might as well do it. It's right there. So we'll be doing those two things today. If you haven't seen our last video, it was the review and the drive back home from Delaware with the camshafts. Installed, and it sounded great. We're actually going to get the off-road X-pipe welded up and do that instead of the catted X-pipe since I got it inspected. So I think it's going to be a little raspier, a little louder, but this fuel pump needs to be done because while I was on the dyno, he said it leaned out towards like above 4,800 RPM when you're doing a full pull. So yeah, the car's tuned for that. We're going to do this swap. It's super easy. We're going to try and get some good lighting on there so you guys can actually see what we're doing. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Alright, so we're going to open this Walbro fuel pump up. Now this is actually really convenient because it comes as the entire kit. So instead of buying, separate parts, the whole sender unit is as one. So it's going to be super easy. We're just going to unclip the old pump within the tank and pop this one in, and it's just so simple. So it's going to be a really easy tutorial today, and hopefully it doesn't take too long.
So the first thing we're going to want to do is you come back here. This car is equipped with a fuel pump shut off switch. So let's just take this wing nut off right here. If you go back here, this is the switch right here. So it's down right now, which means it's activated and there's fuel pressure in it. So what you could do is disconnect this tab and then start the car, and as you turn on the car, it will use the fuel that's in the lines, and then it will just pretty much stall on you because the fuel's shut off, which means there shouldn't be any pressure in the lines. Of course there's going to be a little bit of fuel, but it'll take away the pressure. So we'll do that now. We'll just get a flathead and kind of pry that tab down and then start the car, let it run for a little bit. They say it could be from a couple seconds up to a couple minutes until it just stalls, and then you're ready to go. Since we're in the middle of winter, we obviously are in this garage here. You don't want to get exhaust fumes and all that gasoline smell stuck in here. So we got some ventilated, we got the garage open, we got the fan running. So we're just going to start up until it dies. I just tripped on the rug. Alright, now the next step we're going to do is pretty much remove the fuel cap, and then there's 3 10mm bolts behind it, which just kind of let the filler neck go down when you drop the tank. So we'll do that. You can just set this aside, but they're in a triangle pattern right next to it. And that's pretty much everything from up top. Now we're going to make our way under the car and go from there. So now that we made our way under the car, we're pretty much just going to want to, before we take down the straps and the bolts, just disconnect all the fuel lines going to the tank, and of course some electrical connectors. So we'll just disconnect this one right here. So we actually just pulled it out of this just to make it a little bit easier. And just separate it. And now these are disconnected. One's part of the harness and one's going to be on with the gas tank. So let's put that back in its hole. Actually, no, I'll leave that out. But now we'll work our way onto the side, which would be the right hand side, which would be the passenger side. So we'll start there, and then we'll make our way around the whole front and other side. Now that we're on the right hand side here, we're going to disconnect this little bracket that's pretty much the filler tube, like the filler neck, and it's just bolted into this part of the fuel tank. So we'll just drop that, which is an 8mm just so when we lower it, it's not putting a lot of pressure and pulling that neck. Also, one quick note is, I want to mention, you want to do this with sort of an empty tank, so it's a lot easier to drop this thing. It's going to be easy to drop it because of gravity, but putting it back up with a heavier tank, full tank, is going to be really difficult unless you got, you know, some kind of jack or anything like that. But just try and get it down to E. It just makes life a lot easier. But since we pretty much finished this side, we're going to go to the fuel filter and disconnect the lines there, and then we'll make our way to the driver's side. So now that we made our way to the, I guess, more towards the front of the car, still behind the rear axle, but the fuel filter's right here. You're pretty much just going to pry this. It's pretty loose enough. Get that quick release clip. Just get it out of the way. It's a lot of rust, so it probably will fall on your eyes. So wear some safety glasses. But now we're pretty much just going to separate this from the fuel filter, and then we'll do the same in the back. This is where it's going to have some fuel in the lines, because this is going to have fuel in there. So just have yourself a rag, a bucket, or whatever you got to do to contain it. But I'm going to do that now. Unfortunately, we can't really get too much of a good angle of it filming because it's very tight under here. So I'll have Wes try his best. Alright, hopefully it don't pour.
Oh, it's going to pour.
Now that we got the fuel filter out of the bracket, you're going to have to use your fuel line disconnect tool. And you're just going to slide it in there, and it will pretty much activate the quick release. If I can get it.
Always when we're not filming. Alright.
Bro, I am doused in fuel. Not even kidding you. So when you put the fuel line disconnect tool in there, you just kind of slide it in and pull the line off it. As you can see, I now have no sweatshirt on. Off camera, we did this side, and I got drenched in fuel. So even though we cut the pressure off, there's still fuel, a lot of fuel in the lines, and I'm actually genuinely pissed. So just take precaution and be ready for a gasoline shower. Don't smoke cigarettes. Now that we're on the driver's side, we got this quick connect over here, which has a yellow tab, which you could just use a flathead or a hose pick or something like that, just to pry it out of the way so we can disconnect that line. And then this line right here, once we drop the gas tank itself, we'll be able to disconnect that. So we're pretty much like the last couple steps before we drop the tank. This is the tab right there. It's like a little clip. You just kind of pry up on each side so it widens, and then you can slide it off. Put that aside. I don't know if there's any fuel in this one. There might be. Some dust.
Better than fuel.
Alright. So now, if you come over here, this is the strap. There's one 13mm bolt right here, and then there's one, if you follow that metal strap on the back side, there's one, and then there's one, if you follow that strap again, over here, and then this is just a hinge, like a strap. So there's only 3 screws that we have to undo, and then we'll be able to drop this slowly. And then we'll be careful to make sure we didn't forget any lines, which we didn't, but just in case you couldn't see correctly and you missed some lines, if you drop this, it will put a lot of tension on those fuel lines and could possibly break them or, you know, kink them or anything like that. You don't want anything to obstruct the flow or any leaks. So just be extremely cautious and make sure you got all the lines disconnected properly so we could drop this down. Getting that filler neck out is extremely exhausting, and we only have like a quarter of a tank, and it's just Wes is dead over there. It's just exhausting. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. I know, roast me for
that's what she said.
That's what she said, but it just,
I mean, that's
it started
like 8 inches.
It started like up here,
yeah,
and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. All right. Now we got everything out of the way. We just gotta get to that unit right there. It's like exhausting.
Must have had a little fella living in there, get some acorns and shit.
Wes is under here just disconnecting that little fuel line there. Yeah, I got the flathead right here. There it is. Now we could get this whole fuel tank out a little bit more without kinking that one line there. Alright. So now have a little more access to these bolts, which we're going to clean up around it because we don't want anything to go in there. Disconnect this thing down here. Get that out of the way. We'll get our fuel disconnect tool and get it in there, and we'll pop that out of the way. So we're having some trouble with our fuel line disconnect tool. They're plastic, the ones we have, and it's being really difficult. So we're going to skip that for right now because we do need this line. But we're going to move on to removing the whole unit itself. It's a couple 8mm bolts. So another thing we're just going to disconnect is this harness here, because with the new sender, with the new unit, it gives us all this new harnesses. So now that we got this disconnected, we were able to get that hose off with that fuel disconnect tool. It was a pain in the ass for some reason to do when it was all bolted up, so whatever. We're not complaining, we got it off. But now there's a tab here and a tab here, which you have to push in together, and the unit will come up as one. Let's see if I can get it. It's tight in here. There we go. Old one, the faulty one, is officially gone. Now let's put the new one in, button everything up, and reverse procedure, just put everything up. Even with it being pretty empty, it's still f***ing heavy. Let's hook this up. Super easy, plug and play. The hardest part is just getting all the disconnections and trying not to get fuel on you. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward job. We're gonna put the fuel filter back in too, the new one that we got. We're gonna put this back on. And then this thing kind of just, boom. And then this goes to the fuel filter. And now, the fun part. We're gonna set you guys up for a time lapse and watch us struggle.
Alright guys, so that's a wrap for today's video. Hope you enjoyed. Off camera at the end we just buttoned up the fuel lines and the fuel filter, and then behind the tail light here we just put the sensor back in like we did in the beginning. And the car stalled once and then we turned on again and it was fine. So yeah, pretty easy honestly. The trickiest part was really just getting some of those fuel disconnect lines off. The car is so old and rusted, so kind of gave us trouble there, but overall pretty easy install. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. If you decide to do this yourself, save a couple $100 from a shop or a dealership doing it for you. And definitely stay tuned for this car. We got a lot of shit coming, and once the weather hits, it's going to be nothing but content for this thing. So yeah, until next time, peace.